on behalf of PsycDay, the faculty and officers of PsycDay, as well as the psychology department, want to invite or welcome all of you to our presentation this morning. Particularly pleased to have Miss Vanessa Lomas with us today. Ms. Vanessa, I was attempting to look up what BCMT stand for, and I got several things, but glad to get some verification of more than likely what that is. So first of all, we're pleased to have you with us today. Thank you for consenting to present today. And I'm going to attempt to introduce you today. We have with us today, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Vanessa Lomas. She is a board certified music therapist with a master's in music therapy from Florida State University, the Seminoles. She has 12 years of experience in the field of mental health, and 5 years have been working specifically with individuals on the autism spectrum. She owns TheraCare Music Therapy, LLC, here in Lafayette, and serves as vice president of the board of directors for the Autism Society of Acadiana. Miss Lomas, pleasure to have you today. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Very good.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Vanessa, and I figured I'd just spend a little time with you guys about music therapy. I've given quite a few presentations on music therapy and wellness, so that's kind of going to be my angle today. I think I can share my screen. Sometimes I know how to do that. And we can get started because I have a PowerPoint and I can email that to whoever I need to at the end, so you guys have copies of it.
Thank you.
And that will also help keep me on track. Well, I say that.
Yes, yes.
Can you guys see the PowerPoint? Good, I see some nods, so that helps. I'm not the most tech person in the world. Just, I don't know if anybody else falls into that category, but I definitely do. All right, so music therapy in the mind. Some of this is probably going to be things that you guys already know a little bit about. Anybody have any clue what music therapy is? I guess I should start there. Some folks don't even know I'm a job. Well, it's okay if you do. It's okay if you don't. We're going to go through all of that anyway. So for music therapy in particular, we are like a degree plan. You have to at least get a bachelor's in music therapy. Some states require a license. They're trying to make that nationwide, but it's been kind of slow in getting that going. If it's a state with a license, you have to have a master's in order to practice there, or you have to work under a practice or a licensed music therapist. At the end of school, we sit for a board certification. Pass or fail, you get to have a job or you don't. We work in schools, we work in nursing homes, we work in veteran affairs. Some of us own private practices. Trying to think of anywhere that I don't know that we're involved. Some people work in hospitals, general hospitals, kind of all over. I mean, we're not opposed to having a job anywhere with anybody who wants to let us give it a go. Some of us are professors. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll kind of have an idea of kind of these objectives, what I can do to help in different areas of wellness, and what music therapy is. That's the plan anyway. So that's kind of what we're talking about now. What is music therapy? So we do have the Journal of Music Therapy Perspectives, where we do all of our research and publish our research in physical wellness, emotional needs. I don't know too many music therapists who get into like churches very much, but they can, I suppose, if they would like. We have some music therapists who work in the professional setting. They do team building with corporations. We have music therapists who assist in labor and delivery. We're just, kind of all over the place. So I figured the first one that we could talk about would be emotional wellness. I would guess you guys pretty much know what that consists of. It's kind of my favorite picture in the slideshow because this is what I do a lot with my folks who come in with anger management. Is we do a lot of drumming. It is nice to have something that you're allowed to hit without getting in trouble, particularly for my teens and my kids. And it just, I don't know, you get to let it out, and it's okay because that's what a drum's meant for. It's meant to be knocked around. Parents aren't usually really excited about them getting into drumming because I don't know many parents that want a drum set at their house. But that's okay. I tell them, they come in electronic versions. You don't have to listen to it. You can just plug in your headphones and they hear it and you don't have to. So drumming is still safe to have at a house. So pretty much kind of the three areas that music therapy focuses on when we're dealing with emotions is what we call the ISO principles. So I will start music, whether I'm playing it myself or using recorded music, we'll kind of start wherever they are. So if they're super agitated, I'm going to start with really kind of intense music. Sometimes that would be what they prefer as music. So some of my teenagers, it's going to be heavy metal, rap music, things like that, things with a really intense beat that kind of sort of sounds agitated. And each song after that is going to get progressively calmer so that by the end of the session, they've kind of followed the mood of the music and they can leave feeling a little less anxious or angry or whatever it is, the mood that they came in with. And I do this with kids, I do this with grownups, I do this with my folks with autism, I do this with my folks with mental health issues. It doesn't matter. Whatever state they're coming in, if we're working on emotions, I'm going to be using the ISO principle, particularly if they're coming to me agitated or elevated in some way. Music and negative feelings. This one isn't necessarily that they're coming to me in a state of agitation, but they're coming to me for depression, or they know they have a lot of stress and they're trying to kind of figure out preventative ways to let it, to taking care of that before it becomes too much. Or anxiety, anything that falls into that category of emotions that we don't necessarily want to have too much of. This normally looks like some music journaling. They'll have listening assignments at home. They'll bring them back. We'll kind of talk about the feelings of them. It looks like for some who aren't really interested in talking to me too much, I have pictures usually around the room, just photographs of really anything that kind of strikes my fancy, their fancy. And as we're listening, they can pull a photo to kind of let me know sort of how they're connecting with that song. And we will also curate their own like playlists. So if they get out in the world and they're feeling super anxious, if they have a chance to sit down, they have like their calm down playlist that they can put in, listen to, and kind of work themselves through. We normally attach each song to a like personal mantra so they can kind of say it before they start the music, and it just sort of helps shift them into a more neutral state of being. And the curated playlist I've actually found kind of helps, I don't know, all the way around the board. I've used it with clients who have Parkinson's. We can get them like walking to a curated playlist, and as long as that playlist is playing in their headphones, they can walk without tremors. Like the curated playlists are really just like amazing ways for them to take the music therapy home with them and not necessarily have to have it right in the office with me. And it's all based on beats per minute and drum, like the drum patterns in it, and just sort of like kind of working them through whatever they need to work through. And we change them up periodically so they don't get bored of their playlist, as we all are inclined to do sometimes. The other thing that I do with music and negative feelings, or as an outlet, is they can learn to play an instrument. Obviously they're limited to what I know how to play, but they can come in, I teach them very basic skills on guitar, violin, piano. Normally a lot of my students check out their instruments from the library, because our library has an instrument checkout program here in town, in case you ever need to know that. And they can check them out for 2-month periods at a time, and learn them at home and decide if it's for them before going to purchase a big instrument. And it's just, hey, if you're at home and you're starting to feel overwhelmed, stop whatever you're doing. If you can, go take 15 minutes and work through your guitar work or work through your piano work. And normally by the end, the idea is they should be able to go back to whatever it is that they need to be working on in a little bit of a better state of being. If anybody has any questions, just stop me. I was going to kind of take questions at the end, but it's kind of a long time to sit on a question if you have one. I can't see everybody, so just unmute yourself and yell at me really loud.
Can you go back and explain more what music journaling is?
Sure. So I have, and you could always make one yourself if you wanted to, I have curated lists for them that they take home. So it's got the name of the song that they're listening to that day, who wrote it, maybe some cover bands or things like that, if I want something a little bit more recent for the teenagers and things like that. And then it has spaces where they can talk about how this song makes them feel. If it brought up any memories, good or bad, that we need to talk about at the next session. It gives a space too for anybody who feels a little artsy to maybe draw sort of what they're experiencing through that song. And then they bring them back with me. So I have some that are designed for like kids who can't really write yet. It's a lot of circling things that they can do with their parents, teenagers, and then grown-ups. Some of it also, if I'm working with trying to help really get them to calm down, some of it will actually be really active listening things where I want them to tell me what instruments they hear. If they can tell when it gets loud and soft, if they think that the composer was attempting to express a certain feeling himself, just to get them a little bit more involved in the music, because the more active they are themselves, the more it kind of helps with the calming down and the relaxing. I've used the music journaling for like some of my kids who are learning to write. I have like a really basic one that helps them with spelling and writing. It just really, it's curated to whatever I'm working on with those clients. I hope that answers that question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I mean, truthfully, you could really set it up however you would need to set it up. I've set it up with chunks and pieces of lyrics, and they rearrange them in a way that communicates what they want it to say. We've done some that are like, I give them the song, we leave blanks, and they have to fill in all the nouns, but they have to fill it in with nouns they want. If I'm working with a kid that we're, trying to work on academic English skills. I mean, the sky's the limit with music journaling. It's really kind of fun. Everybody likes to listen to music, so it's not scary because you don't actually have to play an instrument. It's just a really nice way to kind of break people into the music world without being overwhelming. It also was really beneficial when I was in the psych hospital because the clients could have paper and little short pencils. So it was an activity that they could do while I wasn't there. They weren't allowed to keep instruments on the unit or anything like that because it was a like short-term psych facility. So I was getting people like right off of a suicide attempt and they weren't allowed to have shoelaces even. So we had to come up with things that they could do on their own. And that was one of them. So I thought we would take a look at kind of how I help in the physical realm a little bit. So this is music and physical well-being. Sorry, I'm not one for reading people stuff off of PowerPoint. I don't like that myself. So it's here and I'll make sure you get a copy, but I don't really want to read to you if I don't have to, because I don't know. You guys know how to read. So kind of the three.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that last slide?
Yeah, I think I know how to do that. There you go.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Sure. Would it be helpful for me to read them? I know I don't like that, so I will if that helps out.
Oh, no, you didn't have to. I just wanted to see what it says. I just missed it.
Okay. So the three big ways that they bring us into like physical well-being is exercise, sleep, and pain management. Obviously you don't go to a gym and you don't see me standing there, but you could. I offer some like music and stretching classes at my little private practice. Mostly music and exercises, curated playlists. They find that people have a tendency to be a little bit more motivated at the gym if they're running on playlists that are between about 120 beats per minute and 140 beats per minute. It just seems to be kind of just like the right little niche in the brain that keeps people motivated a little bit more at the gym, kind of a little bit more willing to stay longer. And it also is just kind of the sweet spot so that you don't necessarily feel the muscle fatigue quite as much. A little weird. Can I tell you why that works? Not particularly. There's some research out trying to figure out why it helps with muscle fatigue, but and that is particularly in the ladies. The guys generally deal better with a metronome beat. If you're not really into music, it's just a steady beat. It's really nothing fancy. You can put an app on your phone and you just hear click, 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 however fast you set it. For some reason, the guys respond better to just the clicking at the gym and the girls respond better to music. There's research to try to figure out why that's the case too, but that was really interesting because I find the clicking really boring. But whatever, you know, it's the guy's superpower. So music and exercise is kind of what we do. Does it make people lift more weights? No. Are you maybe going to beat your best time on the treadmill? Yes, that could happen with a curated playlist. Are you just going to like being at the gym a little bit more? Hopefully that's part of the big, hey, if we get you the music that you like, you know, you're going to be having a good time because you're going to be, you know, jamming to that and, you know, be able to handle being at the gym a little bit longer. Music and sleep is probably one of our biggest areas for physical wellness. We do have a lot of music therapists who work in sleep clinics. We have some who own their own sleep clinics. The research out there for music and sleep as far as helping people fall asleep faster, staying asleep long, throughout the night, feeling more rested when they wake up. It's just, I mean, you can find articles from now until the cows come home. It is, I guess the only real problem with music and sleep is it's generally not preferred music. So I'm not going to hand somebody a list of songs they like, because if I'm giving you songs you enjoy singing to, you're not going to go to sleep. It generally tends to be songs without words, just instrumental music, classical music. There have been some research to support like some slower folk songs, Southern gospel, jazz. The idea is just not something that you want to like sing along or dance to. And it can't be music that gets really loud all of a sudden, gets quiet, or speeds up a whole lot and slows down. It kind of has to stay in sort of a little sweet spot. Some of the music therapy sleep clinics will actually have you come in, sleep there, and they'll match up your brain waves with sound waves, and they'll create your own little CD of your brainwave music, basically. That is supposed to help kind of take you from, with the ISO principle, take you from, okay, you're awake, calm you down, and then move you into the different cycles of sleep. Some people respond better, again, in this situation, to just the beats. So different hertz put people into different states of sleep, and that can all be curated onto a list, or you can buy a particular little device that does the beats for you. You just have to know which ones that you need. And then music therapy and pain management is one of the ones that we use most in general hospital settings, but it can be used pretty much anywhere if you're having a person who's experiencing that. Obviously, I'm not going to be any help if you break a bone. That's a level of pain I can't really touch. But some basic things. We do a little bit of pain management, like after surgery. The research is really backed up that we can help like reduce the amount of morphine people need coming out of surgery. I've actually had a lot of experience in my clinical work in college. I worked in a general hospital. And it sounds weird that this would be such a thing, but people would come into physical therapy in their casts or their braces and they can't take them off, and they itch so bad. And they would get in and they would get involved in the music class, and for a little short period of time, the itching would stop. So they were all really excited to come to music. And it's just kind of fascinating, just because music lights up pretty much all of your brain at one time when you're actively involved in it. The pain part can't fire for pain because he's firing for music. So it's just, you just don't feel it. Obviously, there will hit a point where pain is way more important for your life and whatnot, and then music can't help for that part. But that's kind of our realm in the physical world. Before I move on, any questions?
There is a question in the chat.
Oh, hold on, I think
I've got to read it to you.
Okay.
I've heard that classical music can help people study better. Have you done any research about music and studying or doing homework?
Yes, so I've been involved in a couple of research projects for that. Obviously, I've read a few, and I have a client right now who we are curating playlists for like homework and study at home. That is actually, I think, coming up next, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, in our intellectual wellness section. So there is, it kind of ranks up there with your sleep music. If I hand you something that's going to make you sing along, you're not going to study. So a lot of the curated playlists for studying at home are classical music, or I can't even really do songs without words, because even if I give you your favorite song in instrumental form, most people have a tendency to want to sing along, especially if they're by themselves. So it generally tends to be Mozart, Bach. Beethoven's a little hard, particularly at the time where he started going deaf, because his music got kind of exciting and it doesn't really lend itself to calming and studying environments. But there is research, particularly the one that I helped work on was improving math, retention of math test scores, things like that with homework. And it did seem to help. We got significant results from that one. I haven't participated in anything other than math related ones. So that's really all I can talk about as far as personal experience. I find it helps me when I have to write papers. That's just my personal thing. I'll stick on a classical playlist and it just keeps me kind of focused where I need to be. Those are all curated playlists as well, unless I'm running a study group at my practice, which we do sometimes. We have like after school study groups. And then that's just kind of a general playlist that I would use, or sometimes even me playing just relaxing background music. There are, for you guys, tons of apps on your phone that are just calming instrumental music, and you can kind of like pair it up if you want with different sounds. Some people enjoy mixing their playlist with the sound of rain hitting the roof or crickets or whatever, and I can help them put those things together so that they find it the most kind of peaceful and productive that they can. I hope that is kind of helpful. So our next one is intellectual wellness. Obviously, a lot of this category is going to be actually learning music. So learning to play an instrument, really just sort of expanding your mind as much as we can. So this kind of shows you sort of what is happening in the different parts of your brain when you are involved in music, and not necessarily just, oh, whatever, you hear it in the elevator, but involved. You're listening with intent. Maybe you're participating in an improv drumming group. Maybe you're learning to play an instrument, but this is kind of sort of what all is happening inside your mind when that's going on. Music is really cool. It's one of the few activities you can participate in that make both sides of your brain kind of go haywire all at the same time. It has so much order and so much patterns, and then on the other side it's so creative that both sides just kind of have to go and do their thing and talk to each other, and it's just kind of fun. It's fun that that all happens. If anybody wants me to, I don't think it's in the slideshow, but I can attach it to the email. I can actually send you sort of the brain scans, and you can see how it highlights and lights up with different types of music or different activities that you're going on. And it's just a beautiful rainbow when they're involved in music stuff. So a lot of anybody coming to me with school related things, just really trying to push themselves. I have some older clients who are like in early stages of dementia that are trying to kind of hang on a little bit longer. So they're taking up, they used to do music, they want to get back into it. That is kind of what all fits into this category. It's actually really fascinating. I've worked in gerontology at the psych facilities, and I have people who can't remember how to talk, but they can remember how to play the piano. It is mind-boggling to me, who's a music person, that is still such a big part of what's locked in their brain, that they can sit down and play things and they can't tell me hello. And it works with connecting people too. So I've had them approach me and they don't know their daughter standing next to them, but they know me as the music lady. It just gets in their soul and stays with them for a long period of time. So that's kind of this section.
What department did you work in, you said, in music?
Yep, so when I worked for the psych facility, they had a gerontology unit, an adolescent unit, they had a drug and alcohol unit, and then they had an adult unit. So we rotated, everybody in the department rotated where they were. So some weeks you would be on gerontology, some weeks you would be on adolescent. So we kind of floated all over the hospital.
Yep, okay, you got that. Thank you.
So this is a lot of the category that I work mostly with my autistic clients with, is just connecting with the world around them and engaging with other people. We do a lot of drumming groups, or just general instrument making improv groups where they come in, all the instruments are set up in a way that are pretty much fail proof. And they can just come in and they can play and be together and make music, and we record songs and things like that, so they can just kind of hear what they were able to do together. Really the only direction they get from me in these situations is kind of like staying in a steady beat together. So we don't have some people who are running over here 90 miles an hour and some people who are going a little bit slow. I kind of just keep them together with a steady beat. And this works with I have some people who come for family therapy. I have some people who come for just social well-being and getting out of the house. And that's mostly what we do with them, is just improv groups. I have little devices that I can put on the ukulele or the guitar or the violin that kind of sort of keep them in a way that they all sound good together without really a lot of effort. You just need to know basically like 4 colors, and as long as you're hitting one of those 4 colors, you sound good with everybody around you. And this is probably the one that most of you use music for in a majority of your life, is connecting and interacting with the people around you. A lot of people don't really think about it, but it's involved in every area of our lives. We've got songs for funerals, for weddings, we all sing happy birthday at a birthday party. Most people can hum a tune from a sport event. This is just the one that everybody in the world is involved in, whether they are doing it on purpose or not. And then the other way that we really use music in this particular area is this third point at the bottom, lyric analysis. So I can be working with a group who's all here for roughly the same reasons. Maybe we don't want to talk. Maybe it's one of my drug and alcohol groups and we're not really ready to kind of talk about ourselves yet. We'll pull in lyrics. We'll listen to songs, whether that's recorded or me doing it or us doing it together. We listen to the song and then we kind of talk about the people in the music, what they were going through, why they maybe chose the path they did. Do we think they could have chose anything better? Because it's always easier to talk about other people than it is to talk about ourselves. We can then, sometimes I take those song lyrics and I cut them into hundreds of little pieces and they have to kind of rearrange them in a way that connects with them. And that's kind of like the next step. So we've talked about these people and their lives. Now let's kind of use their words to talk about my life. And then eventually we move into kind of writing our own music about ourselves. And that just seems to sort of be kind of like the easiest way to like move people and shift people into being more comfortable talking about their own life with a group. I use the lyric analysis with the teenage psych kids. It's definitely way easier for them to connect with other people's music. It's easier for them to see maybe kind of actions that were taken that weren't the greatest, rather than looking at themselves right away. And then they always get to bring songs too. So a lot of people, we normally have 3 or 4 people each class that share a song that they wanted to bring in and talk about. Trying to think if there's anything else from this section that I need to go over or if there's any questions. Okay.
Are your classes usually more one-on-one, or like you said, you have a group of 3 or more?
I do a little bit of both. It just depends, particularly right now. In all of the like jobs that I've had before, it's been mostly group work. Now that I've shifted to private practice, I have some people who prefer individual time because they get a lot of group therapy other places, or they're in school, so they get a lot of social components from school. But I do have some who still want to be in a group. They enjoy that interaction. Particularly coming out of the pandemic, I've had a lot more people kind of be interested in groups. I think just because they were so isolated for so long that they're like, yay, people. So it's a mix. I do group instruments. So if if I have enough people who all want to learn the guitar, we'll do a group together of just learning how to play the guitar. And then I have some people who really want to like get into music, so they want to be by themselves and kind of make a little bit more intense progress at once. I don't find group activities, we don't get as deep as quickly. And some people just really are like ready to do that. So they generally tend to shift to being individual clients, or they do both. They'll come and see me individually and they'll still maintain their group. It's just kind of a mix. So spiritual wellness, again, it's not a category that I know of us being involved in too terribly much. I do know some music therapists who do lead worship at different types of churches, or have classes at churches. This is actually a picture of David from Israel. It's one of the first mentions I know of music therapy ever in the world. And he would come and play his harp for the king when the king had a headache. And it, according to everything that I've been able to read, it supposedly helped with the headache. So kind of why that picture's there. It's a little bit of history of, I guess, music therapy. And then So like hospice and end of life care is one of our biggest, probably next to working with veterans is probably our biggest area of employment. Just because of how much, again, they retain of music, even the folks with Alzheimer's and dementia. Or even like when I did clinicals in the general hospital, when they bring them in at the end of hospice and they are actively dying, we're brought in to sit and we play all their favorite songs and the families can sing along with them. It just makes it a little bit more peaceful than just the beeping and the waiting. Is kind of, I guess, what works in this section mostly. And that one is usually just all live playing. Like there's no playlist. The music therapist is there from the time they're called in until the person passes. If it looks like it's going to take significantly longer than anticipated, they'll swap out with another music therapist that works at the facility.
I'm gonna go ahead and interject a couple chat comments. I thought since you said you wanted to be aware. So one, Emily Wilcox, who's still in the meeting right now, just made a comment earlier when you were talking about the effects of music. For studying, I use this playlist on Spotify called 40 Hertz, 6 Hertz gamma waves for focus. And it is heaven sent. I find it helps a lot with my ADHD.
I would say, let me check my notes. It sounds right to me too, based off of what I remember about my beats for focus. What did I have? Yes, that would be about right.
Awesome, awesome. There is a question from Rose. It says, I apologize if you already said this, but how did you start your career path into being a music therapist? And what degree did you have when you were able to work in the inpatient facility?
Okay, yeah. So I had no intentions of being a music therapist at all. I started college as a business major. I took music lessons all growing up, and I was taking them still from school just because I wanted to keep up with my own music learning and not because I planned it as a career. I spent about 2 weeks as a business major and was incredibly miserable. And I was over in the music building one day for my own lesson and ran into the music therapy professor who I knew from summer camp. I worked at a summer camp for kids with autism all through high school. And he was just talking to me and I was like, I don't know what to do. I just don't think I'm in the right major. And he's like, what are you doing? Your brother's autistic. You already know music. You should just come be with us. And I was like, all right, well, will I get paid one day? Every parent is super excited when their kid comes home and they say, I'm a music major, because everybody's biggest fear is that you're never gonna have a job. And you're never gonna, make a living being a musician. I won't lie, for other paths in the music field, it is hard. But music therapist, as long as you're willing to move wherever you need to go, you got a job. So that's kind of how that happened. He sucked me in to doing it because I already knew kind of a lot about growing up with my brother, and I swore to him though that I was never going to work in the field of autism. It wasn't going to be for me. I had lived it my whole life. I was going to do something else, and here I am. It's not how that worked. So I finished my degree there. At the end of our 4 years of being on college campus, we go and we do an internship. If it's full-time, it's 6 months. If it's part-time, it's 9 months to a year, where you go and you basically do music therapy under a credentialed music therapist. You do some little clinical training. I would guess kind of the same for you guys. You do some little clinical training throughout college, but this is like the big chunk of your clinical life. So I did my clinical training at a residential facility in Senatobia, Mississippi. It's about 20 minutes south of Memphis. I was there 6 months, finished my internship, graduated on Saturday, and moved to Florida and started my master's like right away. The following Monday, my master's degree was focused more on like general hospital and neonatal intensive care music therapy. But when I got out of school, the first job I was offered was psych, and I was like, yeah, okay, I need to pay the bills, so works for me. So I took a job with a adult psych facility, state hospital in Mississippi, and just kind of where I've been ever since. As far as like just career, I worked for them for about 5 years. I moved here and took a job at a small boarding school in St. Martinville as their music therapist for about a year, and then I started at the psych facility in Baton Rouge that's attached to Our Lady of the Lake. And I was there for another 5 or so years, I guess. I opened my private practice while I still worked in Baton Rouge. And just as it built up here, I cut back time there until I eventually quit. And now I do private practice. And I've been doing private practice full time since 2019. 2019, yes. And then, 2020 and shut down and lost all my clients and started all over again. But we all know that story. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into this mix. Is a nice professor took pity on me when I was in chaos of trying to figure out if I really wanted to do with my life, and he knew me better than I knew me, because I never changed my major or thought about it or looked back, and I love what I do, and I don't think I would change it even if I could. All right, so this is, to me, kind of like, I love all the areas that we work. This one to me is one that I've never really done anything with, but it sounds really exciting to me. So this is professional well-being. So this is the group of music therapists who go into retreats, board retreats, or businesses. Some music therapists actually work for the company, and they come in during orientation. And because we have such a huge, we end up with a psych minor, we don't do it on purpose, but we all end up with a psych minor by the end of our schooling, just because of how much psychology we take when we're in school. So a lot of them get connected with HR and orientation, and they do a lot of music therapy with incoming employees to kind of help identify the leaders, or I've had some, it wasn't like the best part of the job, but they were kind of able to pinpoint some characteristics that didn't end up fitting really well with the organization, and they were able to go ahead and let that person move on from the job before they got really into the mix. They get to do a lot of really fun stuff. So there's a whole company with music therapy or music themed escape rooms for retreats, and they get a lot into drumming, improv. The only one that I've ever really been able to be involved in was for Our Lady of the Lake. So after the 2016 flood, during and the week or two after, they brought us in on a rotation. So it was me and 2 other therapists, music therapists that work for the psych hospital. They brought us into the general hospital, and we had like drumming groups for the nurses, the doctors, the people. We were all stuck there anyway, right? We couldn't go anywhere. We were all flooded in. Just to kind of help give them a little bit of a break and sort of deal with like their own emotions and things like that. And that was really fun. I'd never been able to do something like that before. And it was just nice to see like essentially my coworkers, I guess, being able to come in and see what I do and experience it for themselves. And actually, like, you could just see them get more peaceful as it went on, because again, you could just come in and let out all your frustration and hit a drum and do it together. And there's just something really connecting about making music with other people. And I mean, we see it mostly in movies now, but that was kind of like why there was always these big bonfires and dancing and drumming and music with like a lot of the tribal people before they had any big celebrations or whatever, because it was just a very connecting experience for their people. So the only other really like, whoops, sorry, that was too fast. Personal experience for me with this one is the hospital that I did all my clinical work at for grad school actually had a professional music therapy program. So every Wednesday I would go all through the hospital, stop at every nurse's station. The nurses and the techs would all gather, whether that was their adult daycare, whether that was their cancer floor, whatever. I went to every single one of them, and they would all stop and get instruments and play and sing one song together. And then at the end of the day, I would go downstairs to the big lobby right at the entrance of the hospital, and I would basically just put on like about a 1 hour concert. And it mixed in with me, the other therapists there, some music volunteers who wanted to come in. So there was live music in the lobby pretty much all waking hours that the hospital was open, so that staff could come and sit and listen. Any patients who could come out of their rooms could come and sit and listen. And the nurses there, like, I would just ask them if they really liked it, or if they felt like it was a, burden to have to stop what they were doing for this like musical moment of their Wednesdays. And they loved it. They loved it. Like, they actually refused to go to other jobs because the hospitals didn't have a music therapist to come see them. So I was like, yes, they like us. So just kind of a little bit of, the mix with that. If I have a lot going on at work as far as paperwork and whatnot, because if you're students and you haven't yet got to the paperwork part, a lot of your life is going to be filling out paperwork. Whether you go into teaching at school or whether you go to be a psychologist and run your own business or work for somebody, you're going to fill out a lot of paperwork. I have my own curated playlist for paperwork nights because it is not my favorite part of the job. And it just makes it a little bit better. Okay, so this last one was just kind of thrown in to be sort of funny, right? The last little chunk of being a complete, whole, holistic, well person is your environment. Obviously, necessarily for us, that's kind of our home environment. It's great to have a global look, but your home environment is what affects the rest of your wellness a lot. But these are just a little fun little tidbits about some research in the field of music with environmental concerns of this world. So yes, we can affect animals. Yes, we can affect plants. It's odd and random, and I can talk a little bit about those studies if there's anybody who's truly just interested. The last point on this slide is actually the one that kind of affects everybody as well. So the music that you're listening to in a restaurant, that you're listening to in a grocery store, or any shopping whatsoever has been curated. It's not just random. I mean, some stores do just random radio, but the ones that are really interested in making you spend money have met with a music consultant and have curated a playlist specifically designed to keep you in the store longer and encourage you to spend money. Just as a heads up. So this is kind of the end of my slideshow. After that, it's just references and things along that nature. So we have a few more minutes if anybody has any questions. My practice, anything that I maybe didn't talk about that you really want to know.
Excuse me, Ms. Lomas. Do you have any comments? I've jotted down 3 things, and I would say related to music and pregnancy, or at least labor and delivery. Also,
Okay.
Any aspects related to synesthesia and creativity and a sense of well-being, and anything that you might say. I have a client whose spouse has frontotemporal dementia. If you're familiar with that, and whether or not music might be beneficial in that situation. If I need to repeat anything, let me know.
Okay, let's go with number one first, the labor and delivery. So even for us as professionals, that is an extra certification. I, as a like general music therapist, can help a mom through certain chunks of it. And then I would need to refer her to somebody that's been through that training. But I can talk to you about what that is. So basically, as a labor and delivery music therapist, we go through Lamaze training. And we pair a lot of the Lamaze with music therapy. We do a lot of, we don't normally do curated playlists for this at all. We will be there in the room during labor and delivery doing live music. We get her kind of used to our live music. We do a lot of the breathing with them. So the music is actually going to act as a cue for her brain to calm down during that moment. And again, there's going to hit a point where just the intensity of that experience, it's going to leave my ability to kind of help with. But we're going to get her as far as we can without too much stress and anxiety. And then we begin playing as soon as the doctor says he can see the baby. We start playing too, so that they're welcomed into basically a little bit of a calmer environment than just hearing beeping, you know, people running around, mom yelling. We're right there, and they kind of like first hear the music, and they've been listening to it for the whole last trimester anyways. So the baby is kind of already sort of familiar and hopefully able to calm down a lot quicker coming out of the womb as well, because they've already been experiencing this calming music for the last 3 months of being with mom. And that's kind of really what all we do with labor and delivery. After that, it sort of shifts. If it was a neonatal situation, they would shift to a different style of music therapy, which is one of the certifications that I have, is any baby born premature. I can be brought in at that point in the game, and I would work specifically with basically just sensory tolerance. Every time a neonatal baby like flinches, they stop brain cell division for a really short period of time, but you lose a lot in those milliseconds that you're not dividing brain cells. So they bring me in to kind of like desensitize them to the sounds of their environment. And once they get to an age where I can hold them, we'll start what we call multimodal stimulation, and we'll get them through basically like a massage type situation with music. Again, it's just more sensory experiences. And then the other one that will start pretty quickly for a premature baby is what we call pacifier activated lullabies. Most premature babies aren't born with the ability to suck, whether that's mom or from a bottle. So they're fed through a nasal tube or a tube through their stomach. They can't go home like that. So what we do is we put a pacifier in, and there's a machine now that'll do it. Those of us that helped with the research, it was all by hand at that point in the game, but the nurse would keep her finger on the pacifier, and when the baby moved the pacifier at all, I'd start music. And then I would basically about 10-15 seconds, and I'd stop, and they'd have to move it again, and I'd play. And they're pretty quick for being babies. They piece it together. Oh, I like this sound, I want more. So they start moving the pacifier more and more and more to get more music from me. The machine now that they've kind of developed, it'll do that too. You can set it for however much music you want to give them, for however long, how much they need to move the pacifier around. It's all Bluetooth related now. It's tech is crazy. But yeah, labor and delivery is kind of its own little special protocols for music therapy. So it's not just something every general music therapist can run around and claim to do. I hope that kind of answers point number one, and I'm going to let you remind me about point number two.
Point number two related to synesthesia, creativity, and sense of wellness.
Okay. So as far as is what I know about that, for me, if I was bringing somebody in with that, we are looking at probably learning an instrument, just because it's going to build the most neural connections out of any of the music involvement that they're going to get from me. Active listening is great. It does its own set of work, but really truly making and playing and creating the music yourself is where you're going to get a lot of those just really brain firing moments where everybody's trying to work together and make sense of what all's going on. I don't know how many people in here have ever tried to learn an instrument. If you have, you're going to understand a little bit about this, but you're counting and you're reading and you're moving your arms in two different ways, and your fingers are doing all sorts of different stuff, and your brain is trying to process and make sense of all that at the same time, and just pathways are just connecting and building, trying to help you get through all of that. So anybody coming in with that it's just going to be, hey, what instrument do you want to play? That's the first place I'm going to take them. If I can't teach it, what I generally do is I send them to a musician, a teacher, and I probably sit in on it to kind of help with any of like the actual therapy questions that come up. What I normally do is we normally do half and half. So they'll do their trumpet lesson with their teacher, and then I'll take the other half of that, and we go through whatever it is maybe that they need to talk about, like some of the counseling stuff or the lyric analysis, if they do need a curated playlist, because obviously I can't learn every instrument on the planet. I have a basic understanding of at least how most of them operate, unless they give me something really weird. But as far as like actually being able to teach them enough to kind of trigger those effects, unless it's an instrument that I am really capable of, that's kind of what I do, is I just sort of refer them out to people that are willing to work with me, and teach some folks who maybe aren't necessarily just their typical kind of student. And I think there was a third point. I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't want to dominate, but if there's any brief comment you want to make related to the frontotemporal dementia, and you said something earlier about some of the clients that you worked with, somewhat I think of a geriatric population, but is there anything that you can say related to dementia, or particularly this client's spouse has the frontotemporal dementia, and I was just wondering whether or not music might be, to what degree music might be some benefit there.
I would definitely say it depends on where they are as far as the progression of the disease. The earlier that I can connect with them, the better. I mean, obviously all we're doing right then is we're trying to maintain what you've got as long as possible, knowing that it's not going to last forever. And then, we just kind of trying to hang on as much as possible. A lot of times I'm working more with them on just accepting what's happening, helping the family accept what's happening. That's a lot of what I find I'm doing in those situations, is just kind of helping process the emotions that go along with it. If they're in a good place and they're willing, I get them into playing instruments pretty quickly if I can too, just because all that brain firing is still going to happen for them. Maybe at a smaller degree than it would for a typical person, but it's going to be there, and that's the key component for us in trying to help maintain your productivity and your normal realm of thinking as long as possible. And then if I can, and it's starting to affect motor function, we will do a lot of entrainment. So a lot of walking around the room to the beat of a song, because I found, and my own personal experiences with it in my practice, and then the research really backs up, if I can convince a person to really just get into walking to the beat, I can put a little earbud in them and they can go walk around the mall. And as long as that beat is going, they're pretty functional because they've been working on it. It's trained in their brain when you hear this beat walk. I use entrainment a lot. I use it a lot with my nonverbal kiddos. They all know I can hit a button on my phone and it starts this really peaceful violin music, and they'll hit the floor because they know, oh, it's relaxed time. And it takes me a long time to get them there, but once they're there, mom has that button on her phone. She can be in the middle of the store, hit that button, and they go, oh, chill out, because that's just what they've been trained to do. So one of the folks that I had the privilege of working with, she had dementia and she had Parkinson's, really early stages that she came in with us. But she, at that point in the game, was really, her and her daughter walked around the mall every weekend. And she was just like, I have to stop every 5 minutes and shake, and I don't know what to do. I was in clinical training at that point. So the lead music therapist and I kind of got together and really tried to decide what we wanted to do. And we did. We worked with her and the physical therapist she came in every day. about walking to the beats of these songs every day, every day, every day. And we built her up slowly. So we tried to really just do 10 minutes in the beginning. And it got to where she would put in a little headphone in one side and walk around the mall with her daughter. And as long as her music was playing, she didn't have to stop because her brain was just so focused on the, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I hope that kind of answers that a little bit.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback there.
There is another question from the same person who was interested in your background.
Okay.
And it's sort of a follow-up to that question, which is, do you know anything about what might be a route from a psych BA or BS becoming a music therapist? Would there be a certification that clinical master's students can get, or would they have to be some type of music therapy master's student?
So I know of one program in the States that does an equivalency program. So that's St. Mary of the Woods out of Indiana. What they require coming in, I'm not entirely positive. I know if you have a music background of any kind, they're okay with that. I would need to call and see how they felt like if you're coming with a psych background. Because obviously a person coming in with a music background is going to do a couple of online classes for the psych side of things before their clinical training. So what they basically end up with is a degree in music and then equivalency for music therapy. And I would think in my mind it would work the same way. You would come in with your psych, we would give you a few music classes, you would do all your clinical training. You can always get your master's in music therapy with a degree in psych. You would apply to the program. They're going to put you through like the 5 music therapy classes that we take in school. So intro to music therapy 1, 2, psychology and music. The name of the other one has left me, but that was like 15 years ago. So I apologize. They're going to put you through those music therapy classes that we all took in undergrad, and they're going to make you do your internship. So you're looking at roughly maybe a year added onto your master's, but you could totally do that if you're just really wanting to add music therapy to what you're doing. Those would be the only 2 ways that I would know that you would be able to do it without a complete change of career, like now at this point in the game. It is, unfortunately, there's not really it's just a little certification that you can add on to the end. There are some. So your Reiki sound therapy, that's a certification that you could add on to a psychology thing. That's your singing bowls. So your gongs, your singing bowls, and your tuning forks. That is all not a degree program. So it's, I think, like a 12-week program where they basically take you through like how to play them, when to use what combination of what. It's a really intense little training. It doesn't teach you to play the guitar or the piano or anything like that. And it would be used mostly in like a relaxation, anxiety type situation. You can go, and the other one that I know of, they're called tanto musicians. You'll have to learn the harp. That's the only instrument they play is the harp. But it is, again, it's not a degree program. It's just a training with them. I think that one is about a year because you have to be like proficient on the harp. That's like their qualification. And they do a lot of like nursing home work, hospice, things along that nature. As the harp is one of our more peaceful sounding instruments. But those would be the only ways that I would know without getting a like a undergrad in music therapy.
Do you know anything about speech therapy with music? Like I know you said kids learning to read and write with the music journals. I actually wanted to be a music therapist first, but UL didn't have that. So then the next best thing I found was speech therapy, because I know like with autism and stuff like that, working with them.
Yeah. So a lot of what I do with my folks with autism falls under that category. I normally do work with their speech therapist, like whatever sounds and words the speech therapist is working on, I add them to what I'm doing. So we're all kind of doing the same thing. In private practice, you don't have official treatment team meetings, but the parents give me all the information and access to their other therapists. So we do talk. I just add that into what I'm doing. So a lot of singing. Sometimes the kids sing with me, sometimes they don't. The idea is eventually they will. We do use songs without words. So that's just music therapy jargon. It's not instrumental music. It's literally songs where we're making nonsense sounds basically. So I might walk around bitty bitty bum 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 bum, and it's a tune, but it's not words. It's really hard for my autistic kiddos to pay attention to the words that I'm saying and pay attention to the music and try to do what I'm asking them to do. So we try to cancel something out. I want you to do what I'm asking, and I want you to pay attention to the music. So we lose the words. Or if obviously you can change any combination of that if you want. But I have nonsense songs for any sort of sound, any kids who's maybe frontal plating or whatever type of situation they have going on, they're leaving out consonants or whatever. We have different songs that we do in session, trying to convince them to do them too. One of the fun things about the autistic mind for us is they really don't like leaving things unfinished. So if I'm singing a song and then I just stop in the middle of it, as a rule, they're going to try to spit out whatever it is that comes next because they hate that I stopped in the middle of it because they want it finished, which is kind of the little trick that I do to get them saying what I want to say, or at least attempting to say what I want to say. We call it omission. That is like the music therapy word for that. And it literally is just leaving out chunks of the song in an attempt to try to convince them that they want to say it. And if they give me even like a remotely close sound, tons of positive reinforcement. We praise that like crazy. Obviously I know sign language because that's what a lot of my folks choose to communicate as. Some of them will mess with me because they're smart like that, and when I leave something out, they'll sign it because they know I want them to say it, so they're going to not listen. That's kind of how that works. But yeah, just a lot of singing. We do a lot of singing. Even if they're not singing with me, I'm going to sing because they're intaking it. Even if they're not doing what I want them to do, they're processing it and they're piecing it together in their own mind. I connect some sounds with different instruments. So I have maybe an S on this drum and I have a B on this drum. So when I hit this one, we do our S sound. And when we hit this one, we do our B sound. Well, now it's fun because I'm not just trying to make them say things. They get to hit things. I've put out 26 instruments for every letter of the alphabet, and they've run through and made sounds for every letter of the alphabet. They really like that one. I don't know why. There's a research project built in there somewhere why having access to 26 sounds, which drives everybody else crazy, makes them happy. But yeah, just lots of singing.
Any other questions or comments, y'all? Thank you for all the participation, by the way.
Yeah. And this is just kind of open if anybody is interested. All my family sign waivers for students. So if anybody just wants to come and see what I do one day, reach out. There are some sessions that obviously I won't let you in just because it's not the most beneficial for my client to have somebody else in there kind of looking at them while they do what they do. But you just want to come check it out and see what it's like in action. You're more than welcome to come hang out with us.
Vanessa, I would invite you to whomever is been the main people you've been communicating with as we were preparing for this. That would probably be just fine for you to send the PowerPoint.
Okay.
If you want to do that, and then we can relay it around. Also, and I apologize, I started recording without alerting you, but the PowerPoint will be available through this recording, and I hope that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. Any other comments or questions, everybody? Some thank yous. people really enjoyed it, Vanessa.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you guys for having me. I really like doing this kind of stuff and I don't get to very often. So
Yeah, well, thank you so much for spending some time for this successful presentation. We will actually, Vanessa, that a YouTube channel is going to get created with the help of Whitney Story, who is actually here at the meeting. She's going to create a YouTube channel with all of our talks from today, including yours. So if you ever wanted to take a peek at the other talks, your own talk, yeah, I thought you did a great job. So you'd always look at it and share it with somebody else as sort of like a, this is what I do kind of introduction to people.
yeah, that would be great.
So let us know.
We're
We
on
can get
YouTube.
you, we can get you that YouTube information
Okay.
when it's ready. Probably not right away, but relatively soon, I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
That would be great.
All right, well, thank you so much, Vanessa, for this interesting talk, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. And for everyone else, we're going to be starting up the next meeting at a couple minutes before 12:30. So
All right. Thank you.
take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.